Hey, Kelly and Cameron. I am doing a screen recording here of a critique of both of the book covers that you guys submitted. This will be a pretty brief critique, and it'll be the only portion that I record here to share with you guys. Kelly, I'm going to go ahead and start with yours. I'll download both of these here real quick, and then we'll give these a look. Okay, cool. Let's see here. Oh boy, fantastic! I love the illustration you've done on this, Kelly. This is fantastic. Um, yeah, let's give that a look here. Well, excellent use of the different brush to create the water ripple. I love all of the elements of the sword, the highlights, the shadows that you've got in there. That's all fantastic. Um, okay, cool. Let's give this a look across here. Cool. This ends up being a nice element, obviously, that you're using as a motif. Then on the spine looks fantastic. It looks great, nice and professional. Okay. Cool. A few suggestions for you here, Kelly. The first thing that I would recommend is a tweak to either the background color or to the watercolor. I feel like right now, they very much sort of cancel each other out in that they're at the same level of saturation and as well as the underlying tonal value. If we were to take this document and make it all black and white, these would almost be the same value. And because of that, there's just not much separation between those. So I would definitely go one of the two ways. And I do like that nice, rich, deep background color that you're using. So perhaps we just lighten up this water. It might even benefit as well from like lightening it and then maybe even overlaying just a slight gradient on it. Similarly to how you added that gradient to the snake to create that pop. With that, then I would, now that I'm talking about the snake, I would emphasize the head of the snake a little bit further, maybe an eye or two on there, maybe a little tongue, but definitely two eyes. I think that would really kind of define this as the head of the snake. If you do end up putting a gradient, and again, if you do, I would make it a very subtle gradient on that water splash. I would recommend then perhaps doing the same thing on the sword, like on the hilt of the sword, perhaps, as well as like these two shapes down here. Again, just sort of something that's more subtle. The final thing that I'll comment on the cover that I think could potentially use a tweak, I would potentially, let's see here. What I'm thinking about right now, like is like the size of the type for the book title as well as the author name. I would love for there to be perhaps just a slight differentiation in size between those elements, or if not in size, perhaps a different typeface. Right now, they're both the same color, the same size, the same font, the same weight. Essentially, there's no difference between them, so there's no real hierarchy that's present there. What we're basically insinuating to our viewer is that that they're the same, one and the same, just visually speaking. So maybe taking down the size of the author name, or perhaps it stays exactly that size, and maybe the title of the book just becomes a little larger to the point of where it maybe begins in this area. Hopefully, you can see my cursor there. Sort of ends in that area. It doesn't have to be a massive size difference by any means, but just a bit I think would be really nice. This is awesome though. All of those comments that I just made were very, very minor. You got a killer start to this. This looks great. The back of the book looks wonderful as well. Really just one suggestion here for you, and that would be maybe two. I would, for the quote that you have here, I would recommend maybe putting that in italics. Again, just something to separate it from the information down below. generally, not always, but generally quotes tend to be in italicized. So that's an easy way to make that happen. And the final thing will take you all just a couple of seconds. Find out who the publisher is for this book, and perhaps put a line or two of information under the UPC. I think actually you want to bump the UPC code up slightly to make that happen, just so it doesn't feel too crammed. But generally, you'll see like the copyright and the publisher at the very, very bottom of the book. Small stuff. I mean, literally, it'll take you just a few seconds to italicize that, enter that information there. The spine looks wonderful. Again, once you know who that publisher is, perhaps putting the publisher at the very bottom here. I would do that horizontally. I love the vertical tech. I think that looks fantastic. But again, a lot of times you'll see actually one of two things tending to happen. The publisher will be, you know, vertical like this, and then the offer name can be horizontal. But I really like the way that this is sitting right now. So again, perhaps just in small type. Just the other publishing. Wonderful start to this. This is very, very close to being done and should make for a wonderful portfolio project. Looking at this now again and seeing like the subtle gradient from lightning bolt that you've gotten in both those cases, I'm going to definitely double down and recommend that gradient in the water splash as well as the hilt of the sword. But again, wonderful work on this. Let's see. I'm trying to look for my my Zoom window. Cameron, is that you? Did you end up joining me? Or is that you, Kelly? I can see that.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, cool. All right. Cool. Yeah, Cameron. I'm doing a fairly brief recording of these. And that's all we're going to end up doing here this afternoon. I ended up not going into campus today. I've got a pretty bad sinus infection. I actually literally just got back from the doctor. And whatever medicine like nasal medicine that they gave me to clear my head, holy cow, man, it's got me like in the clouds. So, so we're going to make this fairly brief. But let me give yours a look here. Let's see how it's looking. All right, so this is a wild design that you've got here, Cameron, and I think it's fantastic. It doesn't necessarily, to me, scream Lovecraft, but I will tell you, it's stylistically, it's really bold. It's really cool. I think that this will make for an awesome.
I think the only like real problem I had with it was basically of the fact that it was really hard to get a pattern that looked like proper tentacles onto an actual M.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think for the proper tentacles, I think that would be something you'd have to potentially illustrate. You know what I mean? Like you'd have to start with a font of an M, and then perhaps use like the pen tool or the blob brush tool to sort of draw those. But I will tell you that even though this is a radical departure from what we've talked about last week, I think it's really cool. It's really bold. I've got a couple small suggestions size-wise here for you, but from a design standpoint, I love the colors. I love this typeface. The stars you've got in here, like these, like these sort of wavy stripes. A lot happening. I like it. Actually, I like it a lot. So here's what I would recommend. Some small changes in size, I think, is going to help this breathe a little bit. Because these elements are heavy, right? They're really saturated. They're really calling a lot of attention to themselves. And I think with a little bit of room between them, I think that this is going to have that breathing room that it needs. So really what I would recommend to you, first and foremost, I would shrink the title down just a bit, to where maybe it starts like where kind of where like the T is right now, and this would start sort of here. That's going to allow you then to maybe loosen up the kerning just slightly. So, because right now the letter forms are like right on top of each other, very little room between them. So I think that will help that breathe a little bit. But ultimately, we want some more space as well around the edges. We don't necessarily want this type to be like a quarter inch away from the edges of the book. Let's give it at least a half inch to 3/4 of an inch of padding all the way around. And I would say the same thing with the credit here of by H.P. Lovecraft. Let's let that breathe a little bit. It's right up against the edge of the cover. It's a really bold typeface. You got, it doesn't necessarily need to be quite that large. It'll, it'll hold its own at a smaller size without problem. That's again going to give it the breathing room I think it needs. Same thing with the M. The room you have here, I like. In fact, Cameron, I think this is the answer ultimately. This space that you have right here, whatever that margin is, that's the margin that we're going to want not only on the other side of the M, so just bringing down the size of the M, but this same width right here or distance, we're going to want down here on the credit as well as on the title up here. So potentially just drag a guide out, and wherever that ends up, like measure that space there. Give yourself that same space. So when you transform it in from this corner so that this corner stays where, or this side stays where it is. It won't affect that. We'll be bringing this in. And then again, shrink down the, at the Mountains of Madness and the HP Lovecraft to get those two, kind of mimic that same amount right there. I think you can probably leave the stars and potentially like, this is like the moon up here in the corner?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I think you can leave the stars and the moon then. I have no problem with them actually going off the edge of the canvas there. I like that a lot. I really just think it's a matter of just, getting those margins in place on that cover. Let's see here.
I just wanted to add like the ISBN and like all the stuff in the little corner.
Yeah, I think on the back for sure. Let's get like the UPC ISBN number. Perhaps like the publisher name as well. Mm-hmm. On the back here, I think we want to move away from this display typeface for body copy.
Okay.
I love it for single lines of type. I think that's fantastic. But anything more than a line of type, and this is definitely tough on the eyes. Something clean and straightforward could be like Futura or Avenir if you wanted to go with a sans serif typeface like this, which I think is appropriate. It kind of mimics what you're doing on the cover. Now that's probably going to shrink this down a little bit, quite a bit actually, because this typeface is big and bulky. So if you feel like you've just got too much room in this area, maybe finding a paragraph about Lovecraft himself. So maybe you've got like sort of a synopsis up on the top here and a paragraph on the bottom. Okay, and then I think on the bottom here, let's definitely shrink that typeface down a lot. We want to be really careful of this, Cameron. Like I can tell that you smashed the typeface, like the line weight here is dramatically distorted. We don't ever really want to distort type like that. Okay. It destroys the integrity of the font. What I mean by that is like, look, you can see how thin these lines are and how fat these lines are here. I do think you can use that typeface, very much like you're doing on the top right here. That'll occupy a good amount of the space. I think at that point, then what you can do is just put the last name of the author. That's very common. Just Lovecraft is potential. And Lovecraft might be done then in whatever typeface that you're using on the back here. So again, like I said, Futura or Avenir earlier, it could be, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be those.
I don't know why it's saved like 3 times.
Yeah, that's kind of goofy, huh? If something like that ends up happening, are you on a Mac or a PC?
I'm on Mac.
Okay, cool. If that happens, like an easy way to take care of that is like in preview like this, you can select them in the side panel here and just like delete them.
Okay.
And then if you just do like Command S, save, it'll resave your PDF. And like now if I open it up, it will only have those. Yeah, now it only has the one. Cool. I think it's a pretty straightforward path for you as well, like I talked about. Pretty straightforward in all of these cases. I would imagine just at the class time you'll have today, you'll easily be able to knock this out this afternoon and call it done.
Good.
Cool. All right, Cameron, before I let you go, do you have any questions at all?
Not really, actually.
Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, I think again, it'll be pretty straightforward for you. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording now, and I'll publish this to YouTube. It'll take me about 10 minutes to get the link in class for you. But that link, in case you want to review what we just talked about, if you go into the content area, It will be right here under week 10, 11 decorative drop cap. Instead of saying to be announced in about 10 minutes, it'll have our YouTube link to.
All right.
All right, cool. Cameron, you have a fantastic afternoon. We'll be in class longer, hopefully on Thursday. I'm guessing now that I've got antibiotics as well as some nasal spray, I should be feeling much better. And we'll wrap this project up and we'll introduce the final project. I'll show you guys lots of examples of that. And
Sounds good.
the expectations on it.
All right. Well, yeah, you have a good one, and I hope you feel better.
Yeah, thanks, Cameron.